In this video, we'll take you through the steps to configure a typical third-party device on the Samsara platform. We'll cover how to assign an IP address on an existing Samsara gateway, how to add a third-party device to a Samsara account, and how to add any third-party registers. Along the way, we'll also touch on some troubleshooting tips to help you quickly resolve issues. In order to communicate with third-party devices across a network, a Samsara gateway must have an assigned IP address. To set the IP address on a gateway, navigate to the Settings page in your Samsara account. On the left, find the Devices section and select Gateways. The Gateways page lists each Samsara gateway that is currently added to this account, along with information about its connection and power status. We'll be connecting the third-party device to the first gateway on the list. Look across the page to the right and select the three dots. Then select Settings. For this example, we'll assume that the network we're using requires a static IP address for our gateway. Notice that the Ethernet IP dropdown is currently set to Dynamic. In order to set the IP address manually, click on the dropdown and select Static. You should now see additional fields, which we'll use to configure the IP address and related settings. Watch out for two things here. First, you must assign an IP address that is available on the network you are using. Otherwise, you may experience network-wide problems. Second, the IP address field uses / notation to indicate the length of the subnet mask. Incorrectly entering the subnet mask may also cause problems across the network. If you're unsure what IP address and subnet mask to enter, pause and consult a network administrator. For this example, we will configure only the IP address and subnet mask, then select Save. After we are returned to the Gateways page, we'll see a confirmation message at the bottom right, followed shortly by the IP address, as well as an icon indicating that we have successfully connected to the local network. Next, we'll add a third-party device to our Samsara account. Before proceeding, verify that the third-party device is connected to the same network as the Samsara gateway. If you need support connecting the third-party device to the network, pause and contact a network administrator. Returning to the left-hand menu, find the Devices section again and select Third-Party Devices. The Third-Party Devices page lists the non-Samsara devices this account is ready to communicate with. We don't have any devices added yet, so the list is empty. Find and select the Configure New Device button at the upper right. We'll need to assign a name to the device, as well as select the gateway that we will use to connect to the device. Next, use the Type dropdown to indicate the appropriate communication protocol for connecting to this device. Based on your selection, the remaining fields will update below. For this example, we'll select Modbus TCP. Notice that the fields in our pop-up have changed accordingly. Consult available documentation from the device vendor or network administrator to determine the slave ID, IP address, and port number for the new third-party device. We'll enter these example values, then select Create. Once we are returned to the third-party device page, the newly created third-party device appears on the list. However, under Mapped Registers, we see that no registers have been configured yet. Next, we'll go ahead and add a sample register. To map a register, select the third-party device from the list, then click the Configure New Register button at the upper right. At this point, you may need to refer to available vendor or project documentation for the relevant register details, including the appropriate function code, address, length, and data type. Set the Scale Factor field to scale the incoming data up or down by factors of 10. We don't need to scale our data for this example, so we'll leave the scale factor set to 1. If you're not sure whether to check byte swap or word swap, leave them unchecked for now, and we'll return to them in a moment. Finally, click Create. Back on the list of mapped registers, we now see the register we configured. The last step we will cover in this video is to confirm that the new register is properly configured, including tips for troubleshooting some common issues. To check that the new register is configured correctly, click on the register and scroll down to the bottom of the pop-up. You'll see a new section labeled Last Data Point. Underneath, you can view the last data point received as though the register had been configured with different data types and with different combinations of byte swap and word swap. Scan this table for expected or reasonable values to quickly determine whether you have selected the correct data type and whether to check byte swap or word swap. The test value field is another useful tool to confirm that the register is properly configured. When the test is unsuccessful, you'll receive an error code to help you isolate the problem. The general rule here is to test a value equal to the length specified for the register. Here, we used a length of 1, corresponding to a data type of int16. So, we'll use 1 as our test value as well. The test succeeded, confirming that our register is pulling data from the third-party device. To review how to configure multiple registers simultaneously, as well as their associated data inputs, check out the video covering bulk data setup.